The most expensive repair in diesel ownership isn't the engine. It's a part the size of a shoebox that most owners never think about until it's already too late. The EGR cooler, exhaust gas recirculation cooler, costs between $18 and $45 to inspect annually. Ignore it, and the repair bill climbs to $9,400 on average. That gap, between an $18 inspection and a $9,400 engine failure, is one of the most predictable and preventable economic traps in the diesel industry. Gary Simmons drove his 2005 Ford F250 with a 6.0 Power-Stroke diesel for 11 years without a single EGR service. He thought the truck was running fine. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that decision cost him more than his engine, and why the system that put him in that position was designed, not accidental. And the reason most diesel owners make the same mistake Gary did has nothing to do with negligence. There are 8.3 million diesel pickup trucks registered in the United States today. The majority are work vehicles, owned by tradespeople, contractors, ranchers, and owner-operators who depend on them to generate income. Of those 8.3 million trucks, industry repair data suggests that roughly 1 in 4 will experience an EGR-related failure before 150,000 miles. That's 2.1 million trucks on a collision course with a repair that averages $9,400 and in some cases reaches $18,000 when the coolant contamination spreads into the engine block. Gary Simmons didn't know any of this. What he knew was that his truck started consuming coolant faster than normal in the summer of 2019. He checked the reservoir. He topped it off. He drove on. 3 months later, his truck pushed coolant into the combustion chamber. The head gasket failed. The engine hydrolocked, meaning liquid filled the cylinders and the pistons had nowhere to go. His engine stopped. Permanently. The final repair bill, $11,200. That's more than most American workers earn in 3 months of full-time employment. The EGR system was the entry point. But the EGR system didn't fail because Gary was careless. It failed because the system itself was built with a structural flaw that manufacturers, dealers, and the aftermarket industry all understood, and none of them communicated to owners. That flaw, and who knew about it, is what we need to examine. But this is only the surface layer. The EGR system was not invented to hurt engines. It was mandated to save air quality. In 1997, the EPA tightened nitrogen oxide emission standards for heavy-duty diesel engines. Nitrogen oxide, NOx, is the compound that creates smog. It forms when combustion temperatures run too high. The EGR system solves this by recirculating a portion of exhaust gas back into the intake, lowering combustion temperature and reducing NOx output. The engineering logic was sound. The real-world application was not. Ford introduced the 6.0 Power-Stroke diesel in 2003. Engineers at International Navistar designed the engine to meet the new EPA standards with a high-pressure EGR cooler, a compact heat exchanger that cooled exhaust gases before they re-entered the intake. The cooler worked, in controlled conditions. Under real-world load, heat cycling, and the carbon deposits that accumulate over time, the cooler developed cracks. Those cracks allowed coolant and exhaust gas to mix. Coolant entered the intake. Coolant entered the cylinders. Engines failed. Ford knew. Internal service bulletins beginning in 2004, the engine's second year of production, documented EGR cooler failures at scale. Dealers received technical service bulletins, known as TSBs, that outlined the failure pattern. The information existed. It did not reach most truck owners. By 2006, more than 500,000 6.0 Power-Stroke-equipped trucks were on American roads. The EGR cooler failure rate on that engine has since been estimated at 30 to 40% over the engine's service life. 3 in 10. That is not a defect, that is a pattern. And patterns in industrial economics are never accidents. But here's what most people get wrong. Most diesel owners believe the EGR problem is a Ford problem, or a 6.0 problem, something that happened once, got fixed, and stayed in the past. It didn't. The Ram 6.7 Cummins, widely considered one of the most reliable diesel platforms ever built, began showing EGR cooler failures in 2010 and 2011 model years. The repair average on that platform, $2,800 to $4,100. The GM Duramax LML, introduced in 2011, developed EGR valve failures requiring replacement at an average cost of $900 to $1,400, often inside the first 100,000 miles. Across all three major diesel platforms combined, Ford, Ram, and GM, the U.S. diesel repair industry processes an estimated $2.1 billion in EGR-related repairs every single year. That is more money than the entire annual GDP of some Pacific Island nations. It flows quietly, predictably, out of working people's pockets and into dealership service bays and independent shops. Here is the counterintuitive part. The aftermarket EGR-delete industry, companies that sell kits to physically remove or bypass the EGR system, generates an estimated $340 million annually in the United States alone. The delete kit for a Ford 6.7 Power Stroke costs approximately $1,200. The repair it prevents averages $9,400. The math is not complicated. And yet the EPA made EGR deletes illegal for road-registered vehicles in 2008, which means every owner who does the math is also breaking federal law. That is the economic trap in its complete form. Owners face three options. Pay $18 to $45 per year for proactive maintenance that most service advisors don't actively recommend. Pay $9,400 when the system fails. Or pay $1,200 for an illegal fix that solves the problem permanently, but exposes them to EPA fines of up to $44,539 per violation. $44,000. That's more than most diesel truck owners gross in an 8-month work period. The manufacturers built the system, the regulators mandated it, the dealers profit from the failures, and the owner, the person who bought a $62,000 truck to do honest work, absorbs every dollar of the consequence. The reason that structure has remained intact for over 2 decades is something most owners never consider. If you've worked with diesel engines for any length of time, you already sensed this. You knew the EGR was a weak point. You probably heard it from a mechanic, a driver, a shop foreman. But no one ever said it plainly. So let's say it plainly. The EGR system was not designed to last the commercial life of a diesel engine. It was designed to meet a regulatory checkpoint and a warranty window. The warranty on most diesel trucks covers the EGR cooler for 5 years or 100,000 miles. The average EGR cooler failure on a hard-working truck occurs at 110,000 to 140,000 miles. That timing is not coincidence. What most people don't realize is that the service interval for EGR system inspection has never been included in a factory maintenance schedule from Ford, Ram, or GM, not once. You will find oil change intervals, transmission fluid intervals, fuel filter intervals. You will not find an EGR cooler inspection interval. That omission has generated $2.1 billion per year for the repair industry. The owners who avoid this outcome are not luckier than the ones who don't. They are better informed. They added EGR inspection to their own maintenance schedule, independent of the factory booklet. They treated a $35 annual inspection as the $9,400 insurance policy it actually is. You now know what they know. Which brings us to what happens next. The EPA is currently reviewing its Tier 4 emission standards, with updated guidelines expected to affect diesel engine design requirements starting in 2027. The next generation of compliant EGR systems will be more complex, not less, with additional cooling loops, pressure sensors, and electronically controlled valves that create new points of failure in an already fragile system. The 8.3 million diesel trucks on the road today were built to the old standard. Their owners will be making maintenance decisions, or avoiding them, for the next 10 to 15 years. The repair industry already knows what those decisions will produce. The $2.1 billion annual estimate is a floor, not a ceiling. The truck doesn't care whether you understand the system. It runs the same miles either way. The difference is who pays for them, and who was informed enough to decide that for themselves.